Imagine you walk into a bank. Nothing flashy, no champagne offered, no red carpets rolled out. Just quiet, fluorescent light bouncing off polished floors. You stand in line behind people depositing checks, cashing pay stubs, paying rent. In front of you, a man in an ordinary polo shirt leans against the counter, chatting casually with the teller. You wouldn't think twice about him. He looks average, maybe even boring. But what you don't see is that this same man quietly moves hundreds of thousands of dollars through accounts you've never heard of, accounts that seem almost lifeless. High-yield savings, brokerage sweeps, business operating accounts. He's not chasing excitement. He's managing a machine. And that's the secret the rich have mastered. They've learned how to make boring things powerful. Most people chase excitement with money. They want investments that feel alive, the stock that could pop next week, the crypto coin everyone's whispering about, the next real estate deal that could double their net worth. But here's the truth. The people who build serious wealth do the opposite. They move their money through quiet, unglamorous systems that seem dull from the outside but are designed to grow wealth consistently, invisibly, and efficiently. Think about this. If you handed most people $10,000, they'd look for a way to make it grow fast. But if you handed a wealthy person that same $10,000, they'd think, how can I make it safe, liquid, and quietly productive? They don't want adrenaline. They want reliability. And reliability comes from systems, not gambles. It's like comparing a lottery ticket to a thermostat. The lottery ticket gives you a rush, but it depends on luck. The thermostat quietly regulates temperature every single day, keeping things consistent without drama. The rich build thermostats. Everyone else buys lottery tickets. Now, let's break this illusion open. The myth of excitement is one of the biggest financial traps out there. Most people think that to get rich, your money needs to be constantly doing something impressive. But real wealth compounds silently, not spectacularly. Take something as dull as a high-yield savings account. It's not sexy. Nobody brags about their savings account at dinner. But that's where the foundation starts. Not because it grows fast, but because it gives your money direction and purpose. It's a parking lot for potential, a launch pad, a control center. The wealthy treat liquidity as power, not as idle cash. The same goes for brokerage sweep accounts, those automatic holding tanks that park your uninvested money between trades. For most people, that space is invisible. But for a wealthy investor, that space is optimized. They know that if even idle cash can earn interest, it's worth structuring properly, because compounding isn't just about investments, it's about habits. Here's a small example that's bigger than it looks. A typical millionaire often has between 6 and 10 active accounts: checking, brokerage, business operating, trust, sweep, credit line, tax reserve, emergency fund, and sometimes even multiple entities. Each one is boring, but together they form a living architecture. Cash moves through like blood through arteries. No drama, just circulation. Most people, by contrast, have 1 or 2 accounts, maybe a checking and a savings, and they bleed money in and out. No purpose, no direction. They earn 0.01% interest, while the bank uses their deposits to lend at 8%. The difference isn't intelligence, it's systems. Wealthy people use structure the way architects use steel beams. The design doesn't look thrilling, but it's what holds the skyscraper upright. Now imagine this. You have $10,000. You open a high-yield savings account earning 4%. You set up automatic transfers, $500 per month from your checking to that account. You never touch it. In 1 year, you've quietly accumulated $16,000 with interest. Boring, right? But then you move that balance into a brokerage sweep account that feeds into short-term treasuries, yielding 5%. Over time, that boring routine starts compounding, not just financially, but psychologically. You stop thinking about fast money and start valuing quiet money. That's the mindset shift, from emotional to mechanical, from reactive to rhythmic. The wealthy operate on rhythm. Their money moves like a tide, predictable, calm, powerful. They don't panic when the market drops, because they're not dependent on one single wave. They've built channels where their money keeps flowing no matter the weather. But here's what most people miss. Boring accounts don't just build wealth through interest. They build wealth through discipline. A trust account, for example, isn't exciting. It's paperwork and patience, but it protects assets for generations. A business operating account isn't exciting. It's spreadsheets and transfers, but it separates emotion from operation. Each of these quiet mechanisms reduces friction. And friction, over decades, is what erodes wealth. Let's get specific. There are 3 types of boring accounts that quietly separate the wealthy from the average saver. First, the liquidity layer. High-yield savings, sweep accounts, and short-term treasuries. These don't grow explosively, but they prevent opportunity loss. They give you quick access when a deal emerges without forcing you to sell investments in panic. Second, the tax layer. Accounts like Roth IRAs, 401ks, HSAs, and even corporate structures that defer or reduce taxes. The rich treat these not as savings, but as tools for time travel. $1 saved in taxes now is $1 multiplied later. Third, the automation layer, where systems replace willpower. Automatic transfers, dividend reinvestments, and interest sweeps make consistency the default. Wealth becomes the side effect of design, not effort. If you're thinking, that sounds boring, you're absolutely right. That's the point. The rich learn something early. Excitement drains energy. Systems build it. Most people want their money to entertain them. Wealthy people want their money to work for them quietly while they focus on living. The truth is, every wealthy person you admire has at least one boring ritual they repeat without fail. Weekly transfers, monthly reconciliations, quarterly reviews. None of it trends on social media. None of it earns applause. But it's the invisible part of success, the plumbing behind the mansion. It's like music. The listener hears the melody. The musician sees the metronome. The rhythm is invisible, but it's what keeps everything in harmony. Wealth without rhythm is noise. And here's where most people lose. They're constantly switching strategies, chasing returns, reacting to news. That mental chaos costs more than any bad investment. Let's pause and reflect on that. Every time you make a financial decision under stress, you trade logic for dopamine. You chase something that feels good now instead of something that compounds later. That's why the wealthy design systems that protect them from themselves. But let's dig deeper. Why do boring accounts work so well psychologically? Because they create distance between emotion and money. When your cash is compartmentalized, when each account has a job, you stop seeing it as one big pile and start seeing it as a structure. You respect the architecture. Imagine you have 4 accounts, one for expenses, one for investments, one for taxes, and one for reserves. Suddenly you don't feel rich just because you got paid. You feel organized. You've given every dollar a destination. That alone changes your behavior. Behavior, not brilliance, builds wealth. And here's the irony. Once you start treating money this way, once it becomes calm and predictable, your anxiety drops, your clarity rises, and your opportunities multiply. Because now you're thinking in systems, not snapshots. The rich don't look at money as a sprint. They see it as an ecosystem, slow, connected, sustainable. And ecosystems thrive on one thing: balance. If you study the habits of the wealthy, you'll find that their financial lives aren't random. They're rhythmic. There's a recurring cycle of inflow, allocation, and review, not because they're obsessed with money, but because they understand that order compounds. Every transaction sits inside a larger system, like water flowing through a series of filters. It's not just about how much flows in, but about how smoothly it circulates. Here's what most people never realize. Every dollar without a system leaks. It leaks through impulse, convenience, and confusion. The less structure you have, the more you lose to friction. Unnecessary fees, bad timing, emotional trades, forgotten subscriptions. Wealthy people know this, which is why they make structure their first defense, not a luxury. Let's look at a simple example. The 3-account model. It starts with an income account, where every dollar arrives. Then, 2 automatic transfers happen each week. One goes to a growth account, investments and compounding assets. The other goes to a stability account, reserves, short-term needs, or opportunities. What's left in the income account becomes spendable. It's a small behavioral trick, but over a decade, it changes everything. It's the invisible wall between people who wonder where their money went and those who always know where it's going. Now imagine scaling that up. A business owner earning $500,000 per year doesn't dump it all into one checking account. They divide it into operating, tax, profit, and payroll accounts. They automate flows. They remove emotion. That's how a small business becomes a scalable enterprise, not through hustle, but through discipline. The rich understand that money is like electricity. It's powerful, but only if it's wired properly. Without structure, it shocks you. With structure, it lights everything around you. But structure alone isn't the secret. It's the patience to let boring systems work long enough to matter. Compounding doesn't reward the impulsive. It rewards the consistent. Let's look at some numbers. A $10,000 balance earning 5% interest compounded monthly grows to about $16,470 after 10 years. But increase that rate to 7% and it becomes $19,671. Raise it again to 9% and it's $23,674. The difference between good and great is rarely in big leaps. It's in small, steady optimizations that stack quietly over time. That's what the rich do with their boring accounts. They optimize not for drama, but for efficiency. Think of a wealthy investor managing multiple accounts. One high-yield savings earning 4.5%, one short-term treasury fund at 5%, a money market account tied to a business sweep yielding 5.2%. None of it feels exciting, but collectively, those decisions might add $15,000 to $30,000 a year in passive returns for doing absolutely nothing but being intentional. That's the quiet miracle of financial systems. They don't require genius. They just require awareness. Now, let's address a dangerous misconception: the belief that boring equals lazy. Many people equate excitement with intelligence. They think that constant movement, new strategies, or risky plays prove sophistication. But the richest investors, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, Ray Dalio, all repeat the same message. The more you do, the less you earn. The goal isn't activity, it's accuracy. There's an elegance in stillness. The rich don't brag about their accounts because they know those accounts are not the destination, they're the infrastructure. The boring systems behind the scenes allow for the freedom to think creatively, to seize opportunities, to live life on offense instead of defense. This is why you'll rarely find a wealthy person panicking about bills. It's not because they earn infinite money, it's because they've automated predictability. They've turned chaos into choreography. But here's something deeper. Boring accounts create emotional space. When your financial life is structured, your mental energy is freed up for higher value thinking. You start focusing on opportunity instead of survival. You stop reacting and start designing. That's the real ROI of boring accounts, not the interest rate, but the peace of mind. Imagine this. Your bills are on autopay, your investments are on auto transfer, your tax savings are pre-sorted, and your liquidity buffer sits quietly in the background, earning while you sleep. You're not checking balances every morning. You're living. You've built an autopilot that buys you freedom in the present, not just the future. Most people call that automation. The wealthy call it architecture. And this architecture has another layer: protection. When recessions hit, when markets tumble, when everyone scrambles to move money, the wealthy are calm. Why? Because their boring accounts act as shock absorbers. They don't need to sell at the bottom because they have liquidity buffers. They don't fear volatility because they've built distance between emotion and decision. In 2020, when markets crashed 30% in a month, those with emergency funds and sweep accounts didn't panic. They bought. They didn't have to wonder where their next dollar was coming from. That's the power of boring wealth. It's invisible when times are good and priceless when times are bad. If you want to understand why that works, remember this equation. Liquidity plus time equals options. Boring accounts give you both. Liquidity gives you the ability to act. Time gives you the ability to wait. Together, they create power. Not the kind you flex, but the kind you keep. And that's the quiet truth the rich know. They don't chase financial freedom. They design for it. They don't need money to feel exciting because their lives already are. Every boring system they build buys back something rare, mental clarity. And clarity is what compounds into good judgment, the ultimate wealth multiplier. You see, money amplifies whatever structure it sits inside. If your structure is chaos, money creates more chaos. If your structure is discipline, money amplifies peace. That's why the wealthy obsess over organization, not for control, but for calm. What most people mistake for luck is often just structure meeting time. Let's take it further. Imagine two people start with $100,000. The first puts it all into a hot stock that doubles in a year, then crashes 70% the next. The second puts it across 3 boring accounts, 40% in a treasury ladder, 40% in index funds, 20% in a liquid savings buffer. 10 years later, the first is still trying to get back to where they were. The second quietly doubled their wealth without headlines. This is why slow money beats fast money, because slow money survives. The wealthy don't measure success by spikes. They measure it by staying power. The real trick is that boring systems create something wealthier than money, stability. And stability gives you choices. Most people underestimate how valuable it is to not have to panic when the market moves or when life throws a curveball. When your finances are boring, your emotions aren't. You're free to think clearly, to make calm decisions, to act from strategy, not fear. That's what separates those who stay rich from those who get rich for a moment. Anyone can have a lucky streak, a crypto bull run, a stock pick, a business boom. But wealth that lasts decades is built on foundations that don't crack when excitement fades. Let's talk about one of those foundations, the cash buffer. Most people hate holding cash. They call it lazy, unproductive, or even stupid. But here's the paradox. Cash is what gives every other investment meaning. It's the oxygen of opportunity. The wealthy don't hold cash because they're afraid. They hold it because they're patient. When the market dips 20%, they don't panic. They prepare. That's why they win. Ray Dalio once said, "Cash is trash." But if you read deeper, he meant cash over time loses to inflation, not that it's worthless. The rich understand that. They don't hoard cash forever. They position it. They let it sit in safe, interest-bearing accounts. Boring, yes, but ready. That readiness is what allows them to move quickly when everyone else is frozen by fear. Think about 2008. The people who had liquidity made fortunes while the world was on fire. They bought businesses, properties, and stocks at fractions of their real value. Why? Because they had cash sitting quietly in those boring accounts everyone ignored. Now, zoom into 2020, same pattern. Those who had reserves weren't praying for stimulus checks. They were buying dips. The truth is, boring money isn't lazy. It's strategic patience. It's the calm before the compounding. Here's another layer that the wealthy understand. Boring accounts make taxes predictable. They don't scramble in April or fear the IRS. Their accounts are organized. One for income, one for taxes, one for investments, one for reserves. That's how stress disappears. The number doesn't make them calm, the structure does. Imagine getting paid and instantly having 25% of it move into a tax account automatically. You never touch it. It just sits there, growing slightly in a high-yield account. By tax season, you're not anxious. You're already done. That's how financial peace feels. And it's available to anyone who's willing to trade excitement for clarity. Most people think freedom means more income, more hustle, more risk. But the wealthy know that freedom comes from less noise, less uncertainty, less decision fatigue. The less you have to worry about, the more you can think. This is why boring wealth scales beautifully. Once you build your system, you don't need more effort. It grows automatically. Think of it like a river. You build the channels once, and then the water flows forever. The work is in the design, not the daily grind. Let's dig into how this actually compounds over time. Suppose you automate $1,000 a month into an account earning 5%. After 10 years, that becomes about $155,000. You didn't time the market. You didn't trade options. You didn't catch a trend. You just let math and patience work together. Now, at a tax-efficient layer, maybe part of that automation goes into an IRA or HSA, compounding tax-free. Suddenly, your returns jump simply because you organized your buckets. Same effort, different structure, massively different outcome. It's not about more hustle, it's about better plumbing. The rich spend more time designing how money moves than chasing how to make more of it. That's the secret most never see. Because the truth is, a bad system with high income still leaks. A good system with average income multiplies. I once heard a wealth manager describe his richest clients this way. They look bored, but their money isn't. That line stuck with me, because boredom is misunderstood. Boredom, in finance, isn't the absence of progress. It's the sign of peace. It's what happens when everything's working so well. You don't need to intervene. You see, wealth is not loud. It doesn't post. It doesn't show off dashboards or screenshots. It flows silently. It expands quietly. It doesn't need validation because it has structure. And that's the paradox most people never escape. They want money to feel exciting, but excitement is volatility disguised as fun. When you strip emotion out of your finances, you start to notice something unexpected. Joy returns in other parts of life. You enjoy your weekends because you're not worried about bills. You enjoy opportunities because you're not acting out of fear. You enjoy growth because it feels earned, not chased. That's the hidden dividend of boring wealth, emotional freedom. If you've ever watched a tree grow, it's never dramatic. You don't hear it stretching or moving, but give it time, and one day you realize it's towering above everything around it. That's what boring wealth does. It compounds in silence, until suddenly it's undeniable. So here's the real question. Do you want your money to impress people today or protect you forever? Because those two goals rarely coexist. Here's the final shift, the one most people only discover after years of chasing the wrong thing. Wealth is not a finish line. It's a feedback loop between structure and peace. The rich understand that once your systems are built, money stops being the main character of your life. It becomes the quiet background music that lets you focus on the real story, how you live. Most people think they want wealth for luxury, but what they really crave is security, control, and ease. The ability to exhale, the quiet comfort of knowing that every dollar has a home and a purpose. Boring accounts give you that. They replace chaos with rhythm. They turn money stress into money stillness. And that stillness creates creativity. When you're not reacting to every bill or paycheck, your brain shifts from survival mode to strategy mode. You start asking better questions. Not, how do I make more? But, what do I want this to mean? That's where wealth transforms from numbers to wisdom. Let's put this into perspective with a real example. Two people earn the same salary, $80,000 a year. One deposits everything into a single checking account and spends reactively. The other divides income across 5 accounts. 60% for essentials, 20% for investments, 10% for reserves, 5% for taxes, 5% for freedom or experiences. After 10 years, both earned $800,000, but one has assets, stability, and clarity. The other has memories and stress. The difference isn't effort, it's design. Now scale that logic up to a millionaire. Their accounts don't make them rich. Their systems keep them rich. They know exactly where every dollar sleeps at night. They treat cash flow like oxygen, not confetti. That's why they can take risks without anxiety, because risk, when backed by structure, becomes opportunity. Here's a paradox that will change how you think about money forever. Wealth isn't built by chasing returns. It's built by eliminating uncertainty. Every system, every account, every automatic transfer, all of it exists to remove uncertainty from the equation. The fewer decisions you have to make, the fewer mistakes you'll make. That's the math behind discipline. And once you internalize that, everything slows down in the best way. You stop comparing. You stop chasing. You stop trying to catch every wave because you finally realize the tide itself is already working in your favor. Here's a truth I've seen over and over again. Wealthy people don't have better money, they have better margins. Margins of safety, margins of time, margins of peace. They're boring. Accounts create that margin by protecting them from life's volatility. When the car breaks down, they don't flinch. When the economy dips, they don't panic. When an opportunity appears, they don't hesitate. Every decision comes from a place of calm, not chaos. And that's what money was always supposed to buy, not stuff, but space. Space to think, space to breathe, space to live without fear. That's the hidden ROI of boring wealth. It returns your time, your energy, your peace of mind. It's not the number on your statement that makes you wealthy. It's the number of problems you've automated away. Let's zoom back to where we started. That man in the bank, leaning casually on the counter, still unassuming. Still ordinary. No one in line knows that behind that calm posture lies a network of perfectly tuned accounts, all quietly compounding toward his future. They see a man paying a bill. What they don't see is a man who doesn't worry about them anymore. And maybe that's the highest form of wealth, not to appear rich, but to appear calm. Because real freedom doesn't look loud. It looks peaceful. You can tell who's winning in life by how quietly they move. The secret isn't in chasing what's exciting. It's in mastering what's consistent. The boring accounts, the quiet systems, the small automatic transfers, that's where compounding hides. That's where wealth becomes inevitable. And one day, you'll wake up and realize that your wealth didn't grow because of a miracle or a moment. It grew because you designed your life to make wealth the default outcome. That's the quiet revolution of boring money. Because in the end, the richest people aren't those with the most zeros. They're the ones who've finally learned to be still while their money moves for them.